Agnes Jarsdale was never the same after her son died. We would see her sometimes wandering about, lost in familiar places, lugging around memories like millstones. Rumor was she still pushed little Benjamin's stroller around at night, the whine of its worn-down wheels a harrowing siren for those awake enough to hear it. So it wasn't any wonder that many of us were surprised to see her one day, glowing over a large bowl of soup in Caleb's diner, wearing a long black maternity gown, plump as a plum. Now, word gets around in a little town like this, and no one in Mercy Ridge heard anything about Agnes having a new suitor. However, some claim to have seen the grieving mother only a week before, her stomach mysteriously vacant of any new guests, and the old gossip hound, Nancy Oates, swore she heard mewing prayers to some strange idol hiding amongst the wilted florals of her garden. This latter description bears an eerie resemblance to those bizarre statues we've all heard haunt the Healing Wood, a dark patch of forestry in the village over in Orphan. Most of the town's residents are mum on the topic, but I've heard the effigies depict a hideously corpulent woman, her swollen womb said to be filled with the spirits of dead children. Well, it was these strange rumblings that led me to keep an eye on poor Agnes, and ultimately follow her to the overgrown reaches of Serenity's Grove, Mercy Ridge's cemetery. You would think tracking a pregnant, middle-aged woman would be an easy task, but she managed to lose me between the gravestones, sneaking off under the cover of the dead silence. When I finally found her, she was in the children's section of the cemetery, nude and spread eagle on a balding patch of earth. I could see writhing things, umbilical cords, I think, snaking out from her exposed nethers, each slithering thing puncturing the muddy side of 3 tombstone-shaded plots. The dirt soon begat the limp forms of 3 tiny suited corpses, each robbed from their casket homes and attached to the serpentine lifeline of a sprawled and naked nightmare. Well, as you can imagine, I ran screaming when she finally dragged them within her, confining them to the amnion of that hungry womb of hers. The last thing I saw was her belly expanding and the movement of tiny shapes starting within. I never told anybody what I saw, even when Agnes went missing. Well, I suppose I felt bad for her, despite whatever terrible things she'd done. Grief's a terrible thing, and can break even the sturdiest of wills. It didn't matter none, though, as several months later, the fragile tensions of a quiet summer night ruptured with a woman's shrieks. Those who could hear it scrambled to uncover its source, until at last it was discovered that the anguished howling stemmed from none other than Agnes's abandoned home. Many of us started to approach the derelict property, ready to help, but when the screaming was replaced by a woman's elated laughter and the shrieks of newborn children, well, we joined the noisy chorus by uniting with it our own cries, which eventually retreated into the darkness of our homes, where we hoped the familiar and quaint would drown the alien and unwanted. It's been months since that awful night, and those of us who have experienced the misfortune of losing a child, well, we've been haunted ever since. Desiree Adams said she heard her deceased daughter calling to her from the attic, where she could hear the play of rattles and squeaky toys speaking from the cobwebbed enclosure of the crib she placed up there so many years ago. And many of us saw the poor demise of Mrs. Bonney, who we saw become swallowed into the infinite abyss of some unmanned black stroller, which giggled out into the woods lining the outskirts of town. But even when we are not under siege by the tragedies of our past, we are kept under the nightly serenade of children's lullabies, as Agnes Jarsdale, the mother of Mercy Ridge's dead children, lulls her offspring into the sweet undeath of sleep.